on Facebook.
Everybody beware, you better prepare. Disaster can happen anytime, anywhere. Everybody.
WinFM provides an avenue for responsible, open public discourse on issues of public concern without being controlled by any political party, organization, or individual. Our aim is to provide free expression within the law by civil society, private individuals, and political parties in opposition as well as in government. Although WinFM recognizes and holds dearly the right to free speech, we also hold dearly the concomitant right for a person to maintain his or her reputation. The comments, views, and opinions expressed by the hosts, presenters, and other participants by way of radio or social media with respect to this program are solely their opinion and do not reflect the opinions of WinFM 98.9 or its operating company staff, directors, or other affiliates. Well, a very good afternoon to our listeners. You are tuned to WinFM 98.9. It's www.winnfm.com. And it's time now to bring you another edition of One and One. And this program really originates from an effort to have a debate on the issues of the day. WinFM wrote to contestants in this election, inviting them to debate the issues. And we wrote to the Honorable Konris Maynard, the candidate for constituency number 3 for the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. We also wrote to the Honorable Akila Byron Nisbet, political candidate for constituency number 3 for the People's Labour Party. And our letter goes in part, Dear Mr. Maynard and Mrs. Byron Nisbet, as part of its mandate to raise the level of political discourse in St. Kitts Nevis, WinFM wishes to host a live debate between yourselves at a time mutually convenient on or before the 2nd of June 2020. The debate we envision is one with the highest level of diplomacy and respect for each participant, such that no vitriolic statements or allegations of personal misconduct will be allowed. We propose the Lincoln Douglas format, an open style of debate which places a heavy emphasis on logic, ethical values, and philosophy. It is named for the famous series of debates between the U.S. Senate candidates Abraham Lincoln and Stephen Douglas in 1858. We envision that participants will agree on time limits and topics ahead of time. The proposed topic questions to be addressed as well to both participants and time limits as well. Well, Mr. Maynard agreed to the debate, and we have not had a positive reply from the Honorable Akila Byron Nisbet, so we've afforded Mr. Maynard the opportunity to answer some of the questions that we had identified as possible areas for debate. Now, Mr. Maynard, or as he likes to be called, King Konris, on a particular day of the week when he does not being referred to as Honorable Konris Maynard, received his early education at the Victoria Road Preschool, Morris Hillier Memorial Junior School, Bastard Junior High School, Bastard Senior High School. He later attended the Clarence Fitzroy College. In 2007, he graduated with first class honors from youve, with a BSc Electrical and Computer Engineering degree for the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus. In 2009, he graduated from the University of Waterloo with a Master's in Engineering, Electrical and Computer degree. And of course, upon returning to St. Kitts Nevis, he started a consultancy business in computer and software systems, served as a lecturer as well of computer science at Clarence Fitzroy College. He's also known in the arena of Calypso. He's won 4 times in succession the National Monarch title, and also won a 5th time. He celebrated the Silver Jubilee of Independence by winning that crown as well. So an accomplished engineer, an accomplished musician. He has some reggae tracks. He did one with Trent Sargent way back when they were pretty young in those days, and an accomplished Calypsonian. And he's running for office for the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. Mr. Maynard, good afternoon to you, sir.
A pleasant good afternoon to you, Clive, and I want to thank you for having me here on this program. I was, in fact, really looking forward to having a debate of the issues that are pertinent to the people of constituency number 3. So I'm a tad bit disappointed that it's just a one-on-one with you. Not that you're not worthy of having a one-on-one, but in the context of a choice to be made on Friday, I think it would have afforded our constituents a good opportunity to compare and contrast who will be the better candidate to represent the people of constituency number 3.
Well, thank you very much. I think we concur I would much rather be here with the debate between you and the Honorable Akila Byron Nisbet. Perhaps in the near future we may be able to afford a debate of political parties. It's not our first effort.
Right.
We'll continue to try. But it's good to have you here and to give you a chance to articulate your views and your vision. We want to start right away and get into the very first question. Of course, we forwarded these questions and offered these questions to Mr. Maynard before the debate. He's well aware of what the questions are. And the first question, what are the 3 most important lessons you've learned as a member of the National Assembly?
Right. Thank you very much, Clive, for opening up with the question. There are a couple of important lessons that one would learn sitting in the National Assembly. And perhaps I will start this way. In that, unfortunately, there can be different ways that persons can interpret the rules that are before the National Assembly. And I think that to me, needs to be addressed where there can be no ambiguity with the rules. And that, I think, can further the democracy where a speaker or a member of either side, government or opposition, can take a position for their own advantage or convenience when it is apparent that the rules are saying something different. So one, I would really like to see an effort to tighten what I don't necessarily see as loopholes, but the mere fact that it was possible for others to have another interpretation means perhaps that there is something that needs to be done. And within that structure, another important thing that you learn being in Parliament is that I think there is a saying in our parliamentary democracy system, a speaker's role effectively almost to let the opposition have its say, while the government has its way. In the national parliament, in opposition, as it is now, there can be limited opportunities for you to speak. And so you must use your time wisely and efficiently. For instance, a government minister has a section called Statements by Ministers, of which they can elaborate on the ministries that they have control over. They still have the ability to speak on the bills as everybody would. But it is clear that you have a limited amount of time, for instance, on the opposition benches, and you must use your time wisely. Another thing is to appreciate being in Parliament, the independence of the Parliament, and that it is a separate and equal branch of the government. And I would like to see that strengthened even further, because you have the executive, you have the legislative, and you have the judicial part, the 3 arms of government. And that it is really to be a separate and independent body who governs itself. And so when you're in Parliament, you realize the significance of that. It is real life. That you have a legislator who is responsible for legislating the laws, but there are other arms of the government that work together as one in a check and balance system. So those would have been some of the things stepping into Parliament. I could probably add the tradition of the Parliament, where you have a speaker coming out of the Westminster system who can wear the headdress of the old English lords. So there's a tremendous amount of tradition, the way how you speak, asking the speaker for his indulgence, and I crave your indulgence, please allow me, the deference that is required to the particular position. And I must say here that is why I think it's important to strengthen the role of the speaker as well, because the speaker ought really to be an impartial adjudicator. And so there is the discussion whether or not the speaker should be elected. And that is the discussion we ought to have in our constitutional reform debate.
Now, of course, Parliament is seen by some as the arena for opposing forces, if you like, to discuss the people's business, try to build consensus, and try to plot and plan the way forward for the development of the entire country. Based on the lessons you've learned, what would you do differently in the context of, perhaps there is a view that, from some quarters, that Parliament can be a bit difficult to listen to for very long because it seems to be more argumentative than productive, and that's one viewpoint. Of course, a democracy requires you to have lively, heated debate. But are you satisfied that enough is being done to build consensus in terms of, a bill is coming up, do you have enough time to sort it out, arrive at a position? Is it that the opposition is just to oppose and the government must have its way, or is it that the Parliament provides an avenue? Having looked at the details of what is planned, you can actually arrive at a consensus.
Right. So that's a very good follow-up question. No, I do not believe that enough is being done to arrive at consensus in our Parliament. Let me take, for example, the issue of term limits for Prime Minister. That was a constitutional amendment that was brought by the government. Not once did the government attempt to reach out to the opposition, knowing full well that in order to have that bill passed in Parliament, you would have needed at least one vote on the opposition benches. That doesn't happen in modern democracies. You don't bring a bill that you know is going to fail for a political stunt unless that is all it is, right? If you are genuinely interested in consensus, you would do it. So something like constitutional amendment to our Constitution should have engaged a discussion on it and an attempt at least to proffer, this is my point of view and this is why I want your support. We see it, for instance, a glaring example, of course, because we are attuned to American politics, is what you see happening in the Congress. Oftentimes, there are thorny issues that require persons on different sides to sit down and battle out something for the interests of the country, whether it is a stimulus coming out of COVID-19, whether it is a healthcare bill, no matter what it is, consensus is required. And I believe it shows a sense of maturity when a side can reach out and try to garner consensus. And that is what we did recently when we had the state of emergency debate. We brought a bill, a resolution to honor and pay respect to the frontline workers. And we sought the consensus of the entire Parliament in passing this resolution. I remember Timothy Harris sitting there and saying, we done say it, no need for this. But that was unnecessary. It was a good gesture to show the country that the Parliament was resolved in its belief that the COVID-19 first frontline responders were doing what they could, and that we should make, as a government and a Parliament, every effort to remunerate them, to support them in any way possible. So I do not see that anything in the past 5 years in particular, because that's when I served, that showed that the government was interested in consensus on any particular issue. It was either their issue or it is our issue. I remember sometimes even a church bill. Sometimes you have a bill that, you do for churches and so on. And I got up to second the bill to show consensus, spoke about the bill and so on. And while some on the government side would say, the member from opposite said X, Y, and, I stand with the thing and so on. You have the leader of the government, which is the Prime Minister, who does everything to discredit what you say, even if it is in line with what he is trying to say, but he just cannot be seen to be finding consensus. And I think that is going to be critical in this election. Who has the maturity to be able to, in times when there need not be politics, stand up like a man and say, look, we can shake hands on this one. I'm a competitor, but we'll shake hands on this one. And I learned that very well in my own competitive life of Calypso. I never took anything personal. I remember performing in Anguilla, and I did not even know this until afterwards. I remember performing in Anguilla, and Zachary from Antigua was missing something for his wardrobe. I heard him saying that, and I offered. It's a guy who's going to be competing against me, and I offered to help him, and so I just gave him, right? I thought nothing of it. But he came here many years after, and he recounted that incident, that event. And he said, he had gone, he had tremendous respect for me because he would not have normally seen that. But it doesn't mean that, and that year I won, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to go out on the stage and do everything I can to win. But at some point in time, I think there requires a level of maturity. And we intend to bring that in the next-gen SKN administration, where we're going to seek consensus on national development issues, but also extend the courtesies and protocols that I think are required in a mature democracy. Whether it is diplomatic passports for a leader of the opposition, whether it is security detail for a former prime minister or a former governor general, whether it is the concessions that are afforded to heads of state, former heads of state, and present members of parliament. We need to rise to that level of maturity, and we are committed to do that.
Do you believe, based on what you've just said, that having parliamentary committees or what is called Hansard published as well? I'm taking a look at the website of the National Assembly of St. Kitts and Nevis, and I can see you have the Constitution, National Act, standing orders, members, officers, publications, news, and about. And when you go to publications, you'll see the bills and resolutions, acts of parliament. I'm not seeing the Hansard, though. I don't know if it's published elsewhere. And do you normally have how many times have you had committees to look at the big ticket items? Right.
So we have never had a committee outside of a committee for a bill that happens before the third reading. So we did not have a finance committee. There were no other committees established except the Public Accounts Committee. But that was, again, only after there was a bill introduced called the Public Accounts Committee, which took away all of the teeth of the existing legislation that was there. The previous legislation allowed that committee to delve into any part of the government, call upon any heads of department to explain what was going on. All of that was removed. So we had no active committees in the parliament over the past 5 years. Now, some may say, well, you may not have had many in the past, but aren't we a growing democracy? We are aspiring to be better. And if you have made a pitch that you're going to be better and you have not been, your excuse cannot be that somebody else was not as well, because you are the one who promised that you would be better. And so we did not have any committees per se. I do not believe that the minutes of Parliament are published on that site. I don't believe so. But that is something that is clearly the Parliament is the courtroom of public business in our democracy. And so something like that ought not to be hidden per se, but part of the public record.
Well, thank you very much for those responses. And of course, we are hoping with what you've said there, if the opportunity presents itself, that you will actually do something.
Almost sounds like you want to say when.
Forward.
When the opportunity
presents itself. Thank you very much for that bit of guidance. I appreciate it. Now, let's talk about your constituency.
Yes.
For those of us who may not know your constituency, introduce us to your constituency and tell us about your priorities, perhaps 1, 2, or 3 things you've looked at and you believe would really redound to the benefit of the constituents.
Well, there are many. Now, my constituency spans, let me start in the western side, from Palmetto Point, which is in the parish of Trinity. Come forward, you have Garvey's, you have Boyd's, you have West Farm. Then you're going to Camps area, Ocean View, Ocean Gardens, you have Mattingly Heights, Mattingly Farm. You go across, you have Beacon Heights. On the south, you have Bayview. Then you go over into Lime Keel. You have Lime Keel. Go over from Lime Keel, you have Trafalgar. You have Fort Lands. You have Russell Village, Hainesmith Village. You go up into St. Johnson Village. You have Buckley's site, you have Buckley's estate, you have Buckley's housing development, and further up Buckley's, you have Dewars, you have Shadwell, Shadwell West, Shadwell Estate, Lagreet Village. I think I captured most of it. I think I said Mattingly. Yes. So that's the span of the constituency in constituency number 3. And there are a number of priority items, so I don't necessarily want to weigh one over the other. But some of the key things that continue to come out in the constituency are, 1, housing. There is still a large need for housing in constituency number 3. We have done a lot under St. Kitts Nevis Labour Administration in the past, but there are still hundreds of individuals who need that opportunity. And so we are committing to minimum 200 homes in the next term in the constituency. Nationally and in the constituency, we are dividing that up into 3 categories now. The regular affordable home, which you're accustomed to see that we've built, duplexes and single homes. But we are introducing 2 categories effectively. What we have realized and what I've realized in terms of canvassing, you will find persons who you would call a little overqualified for the affordable home, meaning their income is more closely related to middle income. But they struggle if they are to go to the bank because maybe they have a car note, student loan, or just debt that they are servicing. And so the requirements for the bank become a bit onerous, but they're kind of overqualified for the affordable home. So we are saying we are introducing a middle lane, a special section in NHC that will deal with a middle income level home, which will obviously be a bit more flexible and will be catered to those who are just short of the bank but just over the affordable home. So we are very excited about that because that will afford a lot of people an additional opportunity to own a home without the onerous requirements sometimes that are associated with going to the bank. Then we have a very exciting section called the bundle of materials. Another thing in walking the constituency that I've noted is that you have a lot of young men, for instance, who are either still with their mom, maybe they shack up outside, they create a shack, a little add-on, and so on, etc. And the reality is, sometimes if you had one house left and you have a mother and 2 children, and you have a young man by himself, and you only have one house left, social leniency would say you give to the young mother. And so we want to give the young men in particular, but this applies to anybody, an opportunity to own a home. And we are saying if you have a skill or if you can do a group of self-help with yourself, your neighbors, your family, we are going to provide the bundle of materials for you and you build the house. We'll provide the guidance to NHC, the guidance to the building board. So for instance, you'll be given a plan, you have the footing, you get your bundle of materials for your footing. That is passed and checked, everything, go to your floor, then you get your bundle of materials for your walls, and so on and so on. We believe that this would augur a sense of pride among persons if they have the ability to work on their own home, if they are willing to provide the labor. Verified, of course, by the NHC and so on. But it will also provide an opportunity where that home can be cheaper because now their mortgage is simply based on that bundle of material and not the labor to complete it. So that is going to be a critical project throughout the island, but also in constituency number 3. So another issue is small business development. There are a lot of small business ideas. I mean, you name it, from horseback riding to nail, beautician, barber, plumber, electrician, just name it. I've seen them all in the constituency. But many of them have nowhere to operate. They can't afford to come to town like Win FM and purchase a suite here in the Sands or they can't afford to go on 4th Street or in any other area. So we are saying that in constituency number 3, we're going to build a small business mall complex, such that these small businesses will have an area that they can use professional space based on the size of their business, with a storefront, a back office, and a storage, with parking facilities, just like you see those U-malls in the United States and so on. So you can drive in and have a space. Of course, at extraordinarily affordable rates that will promote the development of the business. Added to that, in number 3, we're saying that we're going to provide opportunities for these businesses through our Up From Zero tax plan, where there are no application fees, no taxes until your business is up and running. A lot of times people operate under the radar. They don't have access to loans and so on because they're not properly registered, because they simply can't afford to get that start. We're saying no, we want to widen the base of small businesses because we believe that that is a critical part of expanding our economy. And so we're going to provide you with that opportunity. Now remember, somebody who is doing plumbing on the side right now, the government is not collecting anything anyway from that person. So we are saying, well, let us give you the opportunity to have that license, go through the process, provide the training, provide grants to a certain level, and then loans after that certain level, because we believe that if we drive the small business sector in this country, it will help us to alleviate some of the economic stress that we will and have already started feeling as a result of COVID-19. And we also have some concessions with respect to those who exist in business already. If you have an unincorporated business, right now there's a $6,000 exemption before you pay taxes for every quarter. We are increasing that to $12,000. For businesses that sell goods, it is the limit is $37,500 now before you start to pay taxes. We want to increase that to $50,000. We want to do this to give businesses a chance, a breathing room to be able to expand in order to create employment and to create more services in the country. So that business opportunity is going to be very critical in the constituency as well. Also, we have a rich history in the constituency. It is the birthplace of democracy, we believe, in the Caribbean. In 1935, there was the Buckley's Uprising that led to a whole chain of events across the Caribbean, which then led to a number of democratic improvements in the islands. And so we are saying that we have to memorialize all of this history within the constituency. So one, I definitely am committed to getting a Buckley's Uprising monument that will showcase and highlight the sacrifices of our forefathers, giving us the opportunities that we have today. Added to that, you have Sir Joseph Nathaniel France, a national hero whom our hospital is named after, and who is the longest serving parliamentarian in the history of St. Kitts and Nevis, and certainly even across the world, one of the longest. He served from 1946 to 1989, 43 years. He lived an extraordinarily humble life. He gave back everything he had to the constituency and to the country and to the communities. And so we want to memorialize his achievement and contribution to this country by turning his very humble home on St. Johnson Avenue, Upper St. Johnson Avenue, into a museum. I remember many years ago I traveled to Atlanta, I believe it was, and I went to the birth home of Martin Luther King, and they had preserved it as it was 40, 50 years ago. So you see the type of iron chairs and so on. So when you enter this museum, it will be effectively capturing a snapshot of what it looked like 50 years ago living in Sir Joseph Nathaniel France's house. And then in the back, we will have an expansion to be able to hold artifacts and historical literature on the life of Sir Joseph. Added to that, he used to walk everywhere. He used to take his time and walk from his home to Church Street, where you had Massey's house and government headquarters and so on. I am going to install footprints from Sir Joseph Nathaniel's home in the village along the sidewalks of the streets down to Church Street, such that every person that walks along that path, not just a monument or a statue I want of him, but to look at the humble footsteps of a giant of a man. And that is a dream that I want to see happen. So you will be able to walk along those footsteps and see those footsteps imprinted in the walkway from St. Johnson Avenue to Church Street. In the Shadwell area, there is an old cotton house. Shadwell is expanding. You have Pine Gardens and so on, etc. I want to turn that into a community center, firstly, renovate it to be a community center, but also another small museum that will showcase the history of cotton houses, etc. in St. Kitts and Nevis. It will afford the opportunity of increased economic activity in the area, where visitors can be diverted there through tours and so on to sample the museum and the surrounding area. Obviously, persons who are interested in having souvenir shops and so on will be able to benefit from something like this. So preservation of our history is going to also be part of the agenda for Constituency number 3. So that's just a few of them, and I invite anyone to visit my Facebook page, Honorable Konris G.M. Maynard, where you can see a digital copy of my manifesto, and you can go through and see a number of these things outlined.
Now, in every community, you're going to have a mixed bag. You're going to have those who are on top of the hill, those perhaps midway in the hill, and those at the bottom of the hill. So you have different needs, and you're trying to find the right balance. Everybody equal in the constituency, equal under the law as well.
Yes.
For those young people who are very talented but have limited access to resources, 3 questions will come your way. 1, how will you finance their development? 2, how do they qualify for that finance? And 3, how do they graduate and stand in their own feet?
Right.
Talk to us about this a little bit.
Right. So that's a very good question. And maybe I can use sports as one of those avenues in, for instance, the constituency. Constituency number 3 has a rich history of sports, especially in terms of football. Unfortunately, we do not have a proper sporting facility in the village area. And so it is one of the commitments that I am making that we will deliver a multi-purpose sporting facility on the Limekeel Playfield, which is just behind Bottling Company and the brewery. There's enough space there to do everything that we need to do. Now, one of the planks of for us going forward is our ability, which we know, to raise capital or to interest or pique the interest of investors. And so there are many investors who want to do positive things like this for different reasons. Even, for instance, I'm just going to use FIFA as an example in terms of their own goal to develop football in countries and so on. They offer opportunities where facilities like this can be done. But there are also investors who are going to invest maybe in a hotel or some sort of business, a company and so on, who want to tag along to do community-minded projects. And so we have every confidence that we are going to be able to once again increase our foreign direct investment, thereby providing that opportunity to deliver some of these things. But going back to the sports, so we are going to have that facility. In my own constituency, I'll start there. We want to initiate certain camps, for instance, weekend camps that allow our children to be engaged in sports. But one of the things that we are going to do is we are going to have what we call a National Sports Academy. We already have the commitment from the investor with respect to this. Just the support of the government is needed now. And what we're saying there is when we find the young persons with talent in sports, what is missing? I firmly believe from the depths of my heart that there is nobody who is born in any other country that somehow has more talent than someone born here in St. Kitts. I fundamentally believe that. It is just that they have structures and infrastructure around them that allows the proper blossoming and full potential to be realized. So what we're saying is when we have a National Sports Academy, when we identify talent before the age of 12, instead of going off to high school, you will go off to this National Academy, which will be in the form of a boarding school in a sense. So you from the age of 12, you're now trained how to be a professional athlete. You wake in the morning, you have your drills, your training, etc. You eat breakfast together as a team. You do your schooling as regular from 9 to 3. Then you have your training skill sets all along from the time you're 12 until you're ready to go to high school. What this affords is that you will now be on the same level as others in other countries who are entering high school not high school, entering university. And so you'll be able to compete on that level, not only in terms of your physical skill, but your mental preparedness. And so we give that commitment of developing a national sports academy with the singular view to provide children in our federation that opportunity to become a professional athlete, whether it is in football, athletics, tennis, what have you. And so this is one example I gave of how people can realize that and how it is a real thing. So we will have it. The stakeholder was here a few months ago. We spoke to him. He has done similar things in another Caribbean country. He has a track record of sports achievement and so on, etc. And so this is a real thing. This is a real opportunity that will exist for young people, and that is just sports. We also want to do a very similar thing in entertainment, in the arts, because again, we have tremendous talent in the arts, as many places. But I just believe, I know you're from a sister country, but I just believe that the sugar here is just the sweetest, right? And the talent, I believe, is just the sweetest. But we have to mold it, right? And there must be a focus on that. It just doesn't happen by osmosis. It has to be molded. And though there were active steps that were taken, for instance, in Trinidad and Jamaica, even in St. Vincent and so on, to develop and support our artists. And so we are committed to that. We want to build a national arts center, performing arts center. We want to have an academy associated with that, such that those identified in the arts will also be able to go through that rigorous training from young to become professional in those fields. So this is how we intend to provide that opportunity to our folk here in St. Kitts and Nevis to go beyond the ordinary.
Now, you've won your seat, and your party has won the election.
Yes.
And then you have a buffet, and somebody says, Konris, you take what you want first, and then we will follow you.
Mm-hmm.
Which ministry are you going to pick?
Well, when it comes to the ministry, I honestly do not have a preference. I was telling Ken the other day that I think at some point in time on my resume, I had jack of all trades, master of some. Right? Not none, but some. Because I believe that whatever I put my mind to, there is the capability there to succeed. It is how I operate my life. Whatever I decide to do, I aspire and I try to be the best at it. Even if, for instance, in Calypso, there are people who sing better than me. There are people who write better than me. But I focus squarely on what was needed to win. And that is how I was able to win. So it doesn't matter which ministry, right? Because I have a number of interests. Obviously, as an engineer, naturally, you would have technology, infrastructure, works, and so on. Because I'm a very detailed and specific person. I know I annoy people sometimes because of that, but it's how I know to succeed. The attention to detail is what makes the difference. It is what separates Apple from another company. It's just the attention to detail. And so any ministry like that deals with technology, infrastructure, works, improving, for instance, I want to see St. Kitts and Nevis become a completely government, e-system, e-country. And it's very possible because of our size. We are small. We can disperse and dispatch technology very easy throughout the country. So that would be of interest. I also have interest in obviously cultural arts, excuse me, because there is still a lot to be done in terms of as I said, the entertainment aspect of St. Kitts and Nevis. There's interest in tourism because I believe I have some brilliant ideas and strategies of how to market St. Kitts and Nevis and how to market yourself. I spent a lot of time doing that, marketing yourself, making yourself marketable to people and so on. And there are a lot of ideas that I have in that. Also, I love diplomatic engagement. I want to be able to sit across the table and negotiate such that St. Kitts and Nevis is coming out on top in a deal. And so foreign affairs is also an interesting portfolio. Then you have agriculture. That is going to be a major thrust of this government and many governments from now on. We have to understand the significance of becoming food secure or improving our food security. I think we import much over, way over $100 million worth of food that we could grow here. That's unacceptable because it means that we could create multiple millionaires if we were to facilitate that. But it just needs direction and vision and focus, because we have in the past been focused on tourism, so we invest in tourism. We have been focused on services, so we invest in services. We have been focused on housing, so we invest in housing, and we have seen rewards of all of those. Now we must be focused in agriculture and invest in agriculture. So the reality is that I am open to serve in any ministry. I am the epitome of a team player. I remember the days in cricket when I had to be a water boy. I worked my way up.
I've seen you bat, I think, is it?
Possibly. Right? I had to work that, and I got to be the opening batsman. Right? So I understand what it means to be a team player. And so I have no preferences that will make me feel sad or depressed if I don't get a particular ministry.
I see foreign affairs for you because you're so diplomatic. You're ensuring that you don't upset anyone just in case you have a competition for a particular ministry. Well done, Mr. Maynard. Now, to the issue of competition, you are vying for the approval of your constituency and you have a competitor. Why Konris Maynard? And as a subset of that question, why your team?
Right. Well, why Konris Maynard? Konris Maynard has shown that he is a winner. I said it earlier before. I get things done. I succeed. I identify a problem, craft a solution, and execute it. I'll give an example. When I became a candidate for the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party, there was just over 1 year left before the next general elections. I hit the road. I found out what were the issues in the constituency. I understood what the solutions that were needed, and I pressed forward to get them executed. So in just over 1 year, as a candidate, I was able to build greenhouses, repaint Dr. William Connor Primary School, refence the Patsy Allers playfield, light the Limekeel playfield, pave the roads in the village area, Wigley Avenue, Walwyn Avenue, and some others. We were able to build bus stops. We renamed streets. We started townhouses. We did the multi-million-dollar road project in Buckley's Housing Extension, one of the largest in the country. We did a community cleanup where we removed all the derelict vehicles from camps and Lagreet. We went down into the Boyd's West Farm Points area and installed a sidewalk from West Farm right down to Boyd's, such that children can walk from the villages straight to school on a sidewalk. We started the playfield there, building a pavilion and a restroom. We renovated the Palmetto Point Community Center. And mind you, I'm saying all of this in just about 1 year before the election. I never told someone that because I'm not elected or not a part of the government, I can't get things done. For crying out loud, I am the government's caretaker or representative on behalf of them in this constituency. It is my job to take back the issues and persuade the government to act on them. So there is a tremendous line of achievement in just that 1 year. My competitor has been the caretaker for almost 4 years. And they are in an advanced position than I had then, because they were a member of parliament. They were also the deputy leader of the party that the prime minister leads. And in that 4 years, they cannot to this day tout any major achievement in the constituency. And I'm talking even basic achievements. For instance, I did a scholarship for students in the schools, not even a graduation prize. I helped tons of businesses, can't tout that. The one thing that they are touting is building roads in Mattingly and in Garvey's. The ones in Garvey's were hurriedly started in December of 2019. That is just the end of last year, 2 months before the 5-year mark of the government. It was left off, not finished, still not finished to this day. And then there's a road in Mattingly which leads right to the candidate's door step, right to her gate. Not that I'm not happy for the persons who live, the couple families who live along that street, but that road was built on what is not government property. It is a private development, but it shows the focus of, in my estimation, the candidate. And those are the achievements. One of, for instance, in the manifesto that they've presented, one of the achievements is the approval of the TDC Doers Garden project. That is opposite Buckley's, where TDC bought some lands to build some houses that are not going to be low income or even lower middle income homes. Those are not achievements that you should be touting after being the caretaker for 4 years. And so in that time, and I just compared before I became a member of parliament, but even as a member of parliament, over the 5 years, when you're in opposition, you're not working for the government. And so I work for myself. My wife and I, we work for ourselves. And because of that, I was able to give back my entire salary over the past 5 years to the constituency and to the community. Because it is not about that for me. I'm able to make a living still because I'm not in government. And so I gave back also. That is how I was able to give back a lot to the community. I kept my constituency office open for the entire 5 years. I kept somebody employed there for the entire 5 years. I supported all of the groups in the constituency. We did elderly care packages. We stayed in tune with the needs of the constituents. I'm a huge football supporter. I love the Village Superstars, Trafalgar South Stars, and I contributed tirelessly to their efforts. Last year before, we were traveling to Curacao, and I had to, the team needed more assistance, and I had to dig very deep and come up with the resources to give a major sponsorship. In addition to that, I traveled to see the team play because it was really an excellent opportunity of exposure for the members of the Village Superstars football team. And so I have shown that I can and have and will continue to get things done. It is in my nature. It is how I operate. But we have a candidate who cannot tout any major successes. There are certainly none before politics because the candidate did not exist in the constituency before politics. I existed in the constituency long before I entered politics, so people were very au fait with who I was and what I was able to do, whether it was being involved in football, being involved in the Boys Brigade, being involved in church, being involved with the primary schools, being involved in mentorship programs, whether it is giving back from my Calypso fortunes. Every time I won, I gave back something to the community. I supported a charitable group. One year, I remember a pastor was preaching to us in the carnival committee had organized that we visit a church in my community, actually. And the pastor said, all of the Calypsonians weren't there. And the pastor said, the winner of the Calypso show is in here today, this morning in church. He said, the winner is in here. And when the winner wins, we have to get the tithes, 10%. And that year I won. And very shortly thereafter, I wrote the check for 10% to the church. right? So I've always been there, willing and ready to give back. I've always been there to perform. I mean, when I came back from university, I joined the football club, and I resurfaced the entire Patsy Allers playfield. It was like a carpet, because it was that passion. I used to wake up in the morning. I used to take the team to the beach to help them train on the sand and so on, take them to the gym, support them. I mean, I remember taking players to overseas to get scans and so on. Part of being in the community. So the community would understand that I've always been there and that I can succeed. I am a winner. And this time around, I'm going to win bigger for constituency number 3.
We've got about 5 minutes left. So let me take you back to pre-2015.
Yes.
At that time, you were going up against a stalwart of the Labour Party. His name is Sam Conde. He became Ambassador Conde. And at that time, the argument was that, in some quarters, that you vote for the party. You don't vote for the individual. I remember hearing that argument. And you had people who were for it and those who were against it. Now you entering another election. You won that competition.
Yes.
But you lost the government.
Yes.
The government, Team Unity government, won. Mr. Conde became ambassador. And he founded, with others, the People's Labour Party.
Yes.
And then you ended up now being a member of parliament, but in opposition.
Yes.
Before that, you were with the incumbent,
Yes.
going up against a stalwart, and you
Yes.
defeated the stalwart. Now you're in the 2020 election. Is it a vote for the party, or is it a vote for the individual? In the context of Konris Maynard, if I vote for Konris Maynard, am I voting for Dr. Douglas? And if I vote for the senator, Akila Byron Nisbet, am I voting for Dr. Harris, or am I voting for the Honorable Akila Byron Nisbet?
Right. So it's a very interesting question, and it is in different. Both of them are different contexts. On the Labour Party side, we have a tremendous history in the constituency. Since adult suffrage of 1952, and even before then, the constituency has always voted for the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. I do not take that lightly at all. That is a tremendous amount of history and legacy which I intend to preserve. I believe it is because there's a unique understanding of the fight and plight that the Labour soldiers and warriors fought and waged on the behalf of persons in West Bastion. So there's this unique bond that the people of constituency number 3 have with Labour. And so yes, for many persons it is about preserving that legacy because they fundamentally believe that the philosophy best suited for them lies within the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. But there is also the issue of the individual. Who for us can realize what it is we want? Does he or is he sufficiently aligned with the philosophy of the party? Now, I am under no illusions that somehow it's in the constituency, it is about Konris Maynard alone. No, it is because Konris Maynard is with the Labour Party ticket, and the combination is appealing to a voter, and that is what we sought to do. So for us, it's certainly a mixture of the individual and the skill sets that he bring to bring forward or to have done the philosophy of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. Now, are you voting for Dr. Danzer Douglas in constituency number 3? Well, this election really is about the next gen. Dr. Douglas has publicly said that this is going to be his last election. We are in a phase of transition. So the reality right now is that you are voting for the future of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party in government. Dr. Douglas acts as our statesman guide as we transition into new leadership within the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. So it's not necessarily per se a vote for Dr. Douglas because he has identified that this is his culmination, bringing these talents together, setting it in course, and then riding off into the sunset. On the other side, a vote, is it a vote for the party? Well, the party has no real standing in the community or in the country. It was a party that was, now many people realize, conceived out of a personal political agenda, we feel, of Timothy Harris. I mean, just for the fact that you have a party that starts a few years ago and almost all of the founding members are nowhere to be found. So it tells you that it was not founded on solid rock. So it's not going to be a vote for the party in that sense. Will it be a vote for Dr. Harris? In this case, one may say yes, because the person who is running has no real connection to the constituency, but was put there as a placeholder to support and prop up Dr. Harris. The purpose of ensuring that there's a PLP candidate there is for one purpose only, to prop up Timothy Harris.
Now, we just have a minute to go. So this question, the issue of what some people see as a trade, or what is called treating, what is called bribery. Mm-hmm. What have you thought about this, and what have you discussed with your colleagues about the issue of expectations? That, look, you want my vote, you got to set me up because it's something with something, you can't get my vote. So, mm-hmm. I mean, what's in it for me? How do you have that conversation with the person who has those expectations, mm-hmm. and even with your team to ensure, and you have 1 minute to answer that, 1 minute.
Very tough to answer in 1 minute. What I would say is we see a lot of that happening. I get people coming to me, they're telling me that they are literally being told, I'm going to give you $2,000 to vote for Akila Nisbet. It is actually part of the strategy. And I probably understand why there was no major involvement in the constituency before, where persons are being offered, they are offered money to wear a shirt, they're offered money to vote, and people come back and tell us these things. They show us what they have received. What I would say is this. I want people to consider that the X of a poor man and the X of a rich man, which one is more valuable? None. Both of them carry the same weight. But sometimes the rich man or the person who is not pure of heart realizes that I have to purchase a few X's because I simply don't have enough numbers. When you do that, I believe it's a devaluation of the power of your X. And so my advice to anyone is whatever is on offer from the government, especially when they come with the last minute deals, land and house and loan opportunities and so on, take it. It's your government. Take it. But vote for your future. Vote for who is going to make your opportunities better going forward. If a government, for instance, brings half of a hospital, you have no choice but to use it. But you vote for somebody who will bring a better hospital.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Honourable Konris Maynard, political candidate for constituency number 3. I wish you well, sir. Of course, I must say we can't substantiate any claims about money in the constituency for Senator Akila Byron Nisbet. So this brings to an end our one-on-one.
Yes.
But before you go, I have a breaking story. This is outside of the remit that we agreed on.
Okay.
I've just learned that a statement was made by the national coordinator of NEMA, who's also in the National Emergency Operation Center, giving a briefing. And he just said moments ago that RSS aircraft will be arriving in St. Kitts this evening with observers.
Yes.
So you're the first person I have close to me to get a response. I want an initial response from you, on the record for my newscast.
Right. And that's the thing about putting yourself in front of the media, which I am able to do, but others won't do. So, one, we have been extraordinarily disturbed by the position that the government took, we learned, of disinviting or uninviting or rescinding the invitation to some of the international observers, the OAS and the Commonwealth observers. At this time, it is absolutely critical that there is a sense of credibility lent to the process in light of all that is going on, especially under a state of emergency. We have seen what has happened in Guyana, for instance, where there are questions about the credibility of an election, and it is unnecessary for us to allow our country to get there. So it appears that the government's intention was only to have local observers. I think that is madness and ridiculous in these modern times. I mean, you want a stamp of approval for whomever wins or loses. And I think it was totally the wrong position that the government has taken. I believe the government knew very well when they were going to call the election. It's not the opposition who called the election, so they must have known. And as part of a prepared government and a responsible government, you must know that you have to invite these observers. And they have an obligation to keep their information confidential. So if you don't want the date to be known, you have sufficient time. But it seems as though it was particularly designed to not have them, because they're invited first, and then you tell them that there's a 14-day requirement for quarantine. Well, the 14-day requirement has been in now for months upon months upon months. So it must have been intentional to put them in that position that they're not able to be here in time. See what is happening now. You are reporting that there's an RSS vehicle landed now. So why is that possible for them? No, but not possible for the others. So I believe that this is supposed to be a CARICOM mission, and we are praying and hoping that this is the case, because it is absolutely necessary to hold an election where you have some credibility being added to the process. And we would have liked the same opportunity that has been offered to, in this case, from pressure, because we understand the chamber and civil society had written to, I believe, the Prime Minister, expressing their concern of the absence of overseas observers, and I think has effectively pressured the hand of the government to at least have the bare minimum, it seems. And so we would like for there still to be an effort, as the other observers are ready and willing to go, to have an election that people perceive to be free and fair and free from fear.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maynard. All the very best to you, sir.
Thank you.
You found the sound. 98.9 Win FM.
We now bring you the Win FM News. The Win FM News is brought to you by Flow, The Cable, Rams, and SL Hospitals and Company Limited.
Here comes the sun. Sun quick. Here comes the sun. Sun quick. Sunny flavors for everyone. Natural, tasty, full of vitamin C. The drink for the whole family. It's Sun Quick.
Sun Quick Drink Concentrate gives you 40 glasses. 9 delicious flavors to choose from.
Orange tropical mango.
Peach orange, orange apricot, black currant.
Apple. Red orange. Red fruit.
Bursting with vitamin C.
Sun Quick. Natural, tasty, full of vitamin C. The drink for the whole family. It's Sun Quick.
As social distancing becomes the norm of our everyday life, the Cable wants you, our customer, to know that we are here for you every day. Just log in to us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Send us your